Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the virtual book party for To Sketch a Scandal. My name is Ariana. I'm the events coordinator here at Love Sweet Arrow. Okay, it looks like we are live. And I have the great
Hello,
pleasure
everyone.
of
Thank you so much
introducing Jess
for coming
Everlee.
to the
Hold on, give me
virtual book.
one second. There we go. Should be all good now. It was some reverb coming in. But yes, I have the great pleasure of introducing our two authors. So, of course, with us today, we have Jess Everlee, author of To Sketch a Scandal. If we were in person, there would be applause. And also with us today, we have the lovely Jana McGregor, author of A Simple Marriage and A Simple Seduction. So how this is going to work is if you all have any questions you want to ask Jess or Jana, you can go ahead and put those in the YouTube live chat. I will go ahead and comb through those, and Jess and Jana will answer those either throughout the event or towards the end. Jess and Jana will be talking for about an hour, and then I'll go ahead and do closing introductions, and we're all set. Okay, Jess, Jana, over to you.
Great, great, great. Well, thank you. Now,
Hi.
just hi, hi, hi.
Hello.
All right, show us that beautiful book.
Oh, here it is. It's so blue.
My favorite, one of my favorite colors. It's gorgeous. I
I
just
was
love
so
that one.
excited about
Just,
it.
I think that's one of my favorite of yours
It's hard to
because it's
pick
so
one because
sparkly.
they're all so bright, but
They
yeah, I think so
are.
too.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about this because, oh, wait, let's stop.
Yeah,
Congratulations
thank
on
you.
the release of your book this
Thanks.
Tuesday, the 22nd. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about it.
So, To Sketch a Scandal is the fourth installment in the Lucky Lovers of London series, which is a series of queer historical romances that are set in the late Victorian era, so like the mid 1880s. They are set in a particularly difficult time to be queer in London, just because of the way that the laws and things were going. But they all have their happy endings and a lot of sort of like funny shenanigans and things. And so To Sketch a Scandal is book four. So a trilogy is tidier. So like having three books would have been like nice and neat in a row. But there was a character, Warren Bakshi, the bartender, was just like kind of dangling there. He was in the other books and he's really funny and everybody really loves Warren. And I just couldn't let the series end without Warren getting a book. In this book, Warren meets his match in the form of Matthew Shaw, Detective Inspector Matthew Shaw, and they fall in love in a way that is forbidden not only in their society but also in the club because since Maddie is a police officer, an officer of the law, his Warren works at a queer bar, and his boss, David Forrester, who you'd recognize from book two, does not want them to be spending any time together. However, when they both end up in the same art class for very different reasons, they find that there is too much attraction to ignore, and some sort of like sexy drawing lessons turn into actual love for two fellows who really thought it would always be on the surface for them.
Oh, yeah, it's a great book. I
Oh,
can't,
thank you.
yeah, yeah, everybody needs to get that. Now, are all your books standalones or do new readers need to start at the first book?
They do all technically stand alone, so each book has a different couple at the center, and that couple has a self contained story and happily ever after. However, all of the characters kind of come and go from this club called the Curious Fox, which is a something that's in all of the books. And so I do think that you get a lot out of it if you read all of them. But you can read them in any order or just kind of pick up the ones that appeal to you and let the other ones
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
others on the shelf if you like.
Okay, so here's a very important question.
Yeah.
I got on your website and I see that you're
Okay.
a graduate of the Ohio State
The.
University. The
Yes.
I'm a graduate of the University of Minnesota. So, we
Okay.
don't say the University of Minnesota.
No, that's weird.
Now, why does Ohio State do that?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if it's to it might be to differentiate from Ohio. University, which is in the south of Ohio. I actually don't know the lore about it, but I do know that it's important and you gotta have it. Sometimes you'll see like hoodies around town that just say "the," like
Yeah,
just the
yeah,
word
yeah,
"the."
yeah.
You're just supposed to understand it.
Well, I'd never heard of it until I started watching all these NFL games, and
Okay.
the players come up, and they're
Yeah.
like, the Ohio
The.
State. And it's
Yep.
like, I thought there was only one, I don't know.
There
But
is.
anyway, it looks like you just graduated last year, which is
No.
wonderful. But I have to ask you, okay, so I know that you majored in let me see, what was it? It was queer
It is
studies and late
English.
and
English
Victorian.
and English and what was called women's studies, but it was also transitioning into like women's gender and
Okay.
sexuality studies
Okay.
while I was getting it. So I don't
Yeah.
remember which one is on my degree, but it's all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So why late Victorian? Out of
I
everything that you could have written, why late Victorian?
I just love it. I'm just drawn to it. I think part of it's the aesthetic. So, there's that obvious the Dickens aesthetic. Everyone's got their sort of like their top hats and it's all very foggy and dark and um has this sort of like dreariness to it, but also a lot of humor and a lot of wit. So you've got like the Dickens, as I mentioned, Oscar Wilde, the authors of that time have this like humor and this darkness at the same time. And I just love that. And then another thing that's interesting about the Victorian era as opposed to, for instance, like Regency, where a lot of historical romance is set, is it's much easier in late Victorian to write about people who aren't super wealthy. The middle class was just rapidly expanding. And so there's just a lot of opportunity to tell stories just about very different types of people in different types of situations,
Hmm.
as opposed to feeling like you either have to stick to either sort of Dukes or like very like we're on the East Side and it's Dickens,
Right, right,
or
right.
whatever comes before Dickens. So I enjoyed that. I just enjoy that time period. It's very interesting. It's very similar to our time period. At least when I started writing the books, it was very similar to the moment we were in. Just technology very rapidly expanding, social kind of stuff sort of all up in the air and all over the place. Just very consumeristic, a whole lot of sort of material culture and different things going on with lots of fashion and food and very global in London. So it's an exciting time
Yeah,
to explore. And that's a lot of why I wrote this series was because I wanted to dive deeply into that world again, because I'd been
yeah,
out of school
yeah.
for a while.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, I started doing a little bit of research on the late Victorian period because
Mhm.
in Regency, that's what I write. So I don't really
Yeah.
get into this kind of stuff. But your story takes place in 1886 and in
Hmm.
1885, which I know you know this because you wrote about it.
Hmm.
Henry, what's his name? Labouchere.
La Boucher. Yeah.
Um, was the sponsor of an act in Parliament called an Act to make further provisions for the protection of women and girls,
Hmm.
suppression of brothels, and other purposes. It's
Yes.
interesting that you say that about, it reminds you of this time.
Hmm.
When I was reading this, apparently he did this in the middle of the night. People
Yep.
weren't really, the members of Parliament were not really in favor of it, but it passed because, you know.
Correct. It was very strange. People weren't necessarily, the historians are still not 100% certain why it was, why the sort of changed the laws around male homosexuality were changed during that. It was mostly about stopping trafficking. It was raising the age of consent. That was like the idea of what was happening in that bill. And then they just kind of threw this provision in at like 3 a.m. the night that it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
passed. And
yeah,
there's some speculation about the why and things like that, but I don't think anyone's quite positive why that happened. And it was odd because it sort of like it superseded the thing that so men would no longer be hanged
yeah,
um,
yeah,
for sodomy, which or they would still be imprisoned, but they weren't. It was in some ways like it lowered the penalty for if you were caught, doing the deed the way they didn't want you to do the deed. But it also just allowed this like very vague, like any sort of suspicion could suddenly be prosecuted with almost no evidence given, and then 2 years hard labor, just for sort of like, it was sometimes called the blackmailer's charter, because all it really took was like a weird letter that someone managed to get, and people could get each other into a lot of trouble. So it was a very stressful
Well,
time
and Oscar
for a lot of
Wilde
men.
had to do that, right? He had to go to
Yes,
prison.
yes, that was the amendment under which he was imprisoned. Alan Turing famously as well, because that provision was not repealed until I believe the 1960s.
Yeah, yeah. And you know this better than I do, but I think that Oscar Wilde was kind of flaunting his sexuality because he thought that it would never occur. I mean, that it would never happen.
Oscar Wilde is an interesting case. I did some studies on him. I'm very fascinated in his best friend Robbie Ross as well. So that's like a very niche deep dive that I've done. I find Robbie Ross. I was really fascinated with Oscar Wilde, and he's still great. And then I learned about Robbie Ross, and then I was like, "Whoa, this is an interesting dude here as well." Who's a very good friend to the end and beyond to Oscar Wilde. But yeah, Oscar Wilde was in a very sort of messy relationship with someone with a very messy family who took him down on purpose. So it was one of those things. Where it's like you get away with a lot, especially in the theater scene, and my characters kind of do tend to get away with a lot because they're also not famous. Like Oscar was very, very famous.
Right.
Um, so there were people who were kind of had it out for him, but no one could really quite get him. But then he just, I don't know, things got very messy for
Yeah.
him at a
Yeah.
certain point for some interpersonal reasons. So that's why it was sort of very sad to sort of read the story. Is a lot of the time it has to do with people betraying each other and people who knew each other sort of well or in different contexts, taking things
It
to the
was it,
laws.
it was a very serious time. And
Yeah,
you have a gift of being able to present a lovely, lighthearted, beautiful romance and place it in the middle of all of this. And it takes a real talent to do that.
thank you.
So how do you do that? Meaning, I mean, do you consider yourself a funny writer, or do you purposely have to put the humor and the lightheartedness in there?
I love doing humor, so I do consider myself to be a funny writer. I used to do a lot of theater, and I always really liked doing the humorous things in that as well. So that is my favorite part, is all the humor. I love all the one-liners. I don't even know if I could write a book that didn't have humor in it. Um,
We
but
need that. We need that
yeah,
right now.
good. I'm glad. I'm glad people want it, and I'm happy to provide it. Um, I think the biggest way for this series that I did it was making sure that I had characters who were not, they were really not in the public eye.
Yeah.
They're not famous. They are not, some of them are somewhat wealthy, but they're not super rich. They're not noble. They don't have a lot of, just eyes upon them.
Yeah.
And London was a big, vibrant, bright, multicultural city. And so the chances of getting noticed for any particular thing, if you're not in the public eye, kind of probably pretty small, I would
Yeah.
assume, statistically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I also have kind of a theory of like, well, there's a lot of people that you don't hear about because there's no court records.
Right.
It's great that we don't have any records about a lot of people. So I'm writing about the people that we don't have records on.
Now, there's a question that someone in the
Yeah.
audience about
Yeah.
individual accounts of queer love. How much of that
Uh-huh.
research do you do? And any particular
I
stories that stuck with you?
Gosh, I need to try to. This is so one thing I will mention just as a reminder, books are written like years in advance of when they come out. So I may have to rack my brain a little bit for some of that. I do like reading individual accounts of queer love. I like reading sometimes you can find things that might have been love letters. It's hard because when you know for sure, then a lot of times it's something that's ending in tragedy. So a lot of it is sort of speculation. People did use really sort of florid language both with lovers and with friends. And there was a lot more blurriness between friendship and romantic love. It was really when it got sexual that it stressed the Victorians out. But people could express like even a romantic, extreme love for their dearest, most loving companions of whatever gender. So what can I think? There was a doctor for the third book that I thought was really fascinating. I read about so many doctors, I can't remember which one it is. I want to say it's Josephine Baker, but there were a few, so I'd hate to have it wrong. Where her most likely lover actually wrote a biography of her life. So they were both female physicians, and they had a very intimate relationship that we would then, in our time, probably assume was a loving relationship between them. And so after her death, her bereaved lover did write her biography about her work in the field as one of the first female doctors. Oh, I hope it was Josephine Baker. It might not be. If it's another one of them, I'm very sorry.
You know, it is so funny. We talk about this when we're doing Regency research. You know, women could live together, pool their
Yeah.
resources, and nobody would even think a thing about it.
Yes.
You
Yes. Until
know,
about 1910, that started to get on the radar.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, it really was, excuse me. Um, and it really was a matter of people thought it was economics, but it
Yeah.
really, you know, sometimes it was, but sometimes it wasn't. And I'm sure that it was the same for those guys down there. But you know, we're
Yeah.
talking about all this research and stuff. When you um, start doing research,
Yeah.
how many times do you find yourself going down a rabbit hole and then, you know, spending hours, sometimes days, just looking up stuff?
Oh, all the time. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it can be hard not to. They're useful though. I never feel too bad about it. I don't feel like I get dragged in a direction that isn't helpful. It was not a rabbit hole. It felt like a rabbit hole because it was so hard to find
yeah.
information. I just had so much trouble finding information about like Indian people in particular for Chisketcha scandal in London at this particular time. I'm sure it's there in the like academic sphere, but in terms of what I had access to on the type of deadline that I had, I really
Uh,
had a tough time. So I found myself like kind of going down different paths trying to get the information that I needed to write the book. So that was interesting. And then the Oscar Wilde and then the Robbie Ross deep dive. That was very cool too, though, because then I found out like all these different like groups of he had this whole group of queer friends, and they all had all their own dramas and everything. So that's like a useful one to see what a queer community looked like. Because if once you find that sort of the niche books that have like 3 reviews on Amazon, and you can start to like read about what his queer community looked like and how it functioned, and it was very very interesting. So the deep dives, they don't hurt me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So tell us about what's a typical day in Jess Everlee's life?
Well, right now I'm not on deadline, so right now, and I'm about to start school again in the fall
Oh,
for
congratulations.
something. Thank you. Very different. I'm going very different day job for a little while. So but in terms of when I do have a deadline and a writing day, I am an early bird. So I like to get up. I like to hang out with my dog and drink my coffee. And I like to get started writing fairly early. If I can, I'm usually kind of useless by about 2 p.m. And then I do the household stuff that needs to be done, the stuff of life. If my kid is in school, I pick her up from school. If she's not, then hopefully she was at camp or with a friend, or else she's like just hanging out, complaining at me, and wondering
Yeah,
why
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not done. So I write in the morning and then just kind of do the life stuff the other half of the day.
Okay, you know, it's to sketch a scoundrel. I mean, I love that title. I just love that title. And the series title, Lucky
Yes.
Lovers of London. I mean, it just rolls off the tongue. Did you come up with all of those?
Some.
Some.
I came up with so the series actually originally the book when I first submitted the first book was called A Curious Collection, and they all were going to have this like
Yeah, yeah,
curious titles. And the first book was changed to The Gentleman's Book of Vices, and I was asked to sort of brainstorm some different series titles. So I think I did come up with The Lucky Lovers of London or something similar to it, but I had written
brilliant.
down like five or six
Yeah,
of them, and they came back with that one and The Gentleman's Book of Vices, and then I made up titles for the other ones that were just similar kind of
yeah,
to
yeah,
that first one. So that's where they came from. And then To Sketch a Scandal, there was a lot of debate with my editor and I were kind of going back and forth. It was To Sketch a Scoundrel, but they weren't really that scoundrelly. And we had a few other things. We liked Scandal. We decided that was a
yeah,
good
yeah.
historical romance word.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but you know what though? I mean, we need more scandals and we need more scoundrels. And I really like rule book for restless rogues. We definitely need more rogues. I mean,
Love
they're
rogues.
perfect. They're perfect. Um, so what made you pick art as, as the meeting place for Warren and Maddie in this book?
Um, it was
Well, I mean,
because,
wait,
yeah,
let's step back a second because that's not where they first meet. But I
right.
we don't want to spoil the all the good things for the readers, but they do end
Right.
up in art in an
They
art
do end up
class.
in the art class together. And so the reason for that is one of the things that I found in gay literature at the time, most of which was being published as pornography, like what that is very explicitly, openly gay literature, had that art kept coming up, um, sort of queer art in their sphere, people painting each other, models, things like that came up. The picture of Dorian Gray, obviously another famous one. So I found there was this sort of like this artistic art awareness in the gay community in the time that I was writing in. And Warren and Maddie are both, up until this point, both in their lives and sort of at a series level, they're mostly pretty. They're mostly just like good looking guys. And that is the role that they have played in their lives. And it is the role that I cast them in as side characters in the other books that they
Yeah.
appear in, is as kind of this almost humorously attractive sort of person on the sidelines, just kind of for laughs. And so that was something, that aesthetic part aspect of them is kind of why I ended up putting those characters together. When I was going to write a book for Warren, I kind of went through a few different options of
Uh-huh.
different side characters. I like to write with side characters who have already appeared. So it's kind of going through who I had to work with. And that visual aspect was really interesting to me, to bring these two together and see, how they could get under the surface with each other in a way that would be new for both of them.
Yeah, I really love the way that you mirrored them, but in many but in different ways. Meaning Warren, they both were kind of displaced characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Warren was taking care of his mother, and then his brother came home and was
Yeah.
wealthy and moved him up into this beautiful
Yeah.
mansion, et cetera. And all the things that made Warren's everyday life what it was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of disappeared. Thank goodness he had the curious fox,
Yeah.
right? The bar
Yeah.
that he could go to. And then there's poor Maddie, who, he's in danger of losing everything. He's right on the
Yeah.
edge, right?
He
And
is.
and I thought that was really magical the way that you mirrored those two with their losses. I mean, with their displacement, but yet they were so different. Now,
Well, thank you. Carry on. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So did you purposely do that? Or was this something that you came out of editing with?
What's funny is almost that's actually what I came into the book with. That was actually my main plot. Was just they were
That's
both at these moments of change in their
uh,
lives.
uh,
Everything has shifted. Everything they knew is about to be gone, and that wasn't enough plot. So I did edit some, added a little bit more intrigue on Maddie's side in particular. I had actually originally written it after he quit, and he was just trying to be an artist,
yeah.
and it just there wasn't enough, I guess, going on at that point. But yes, that's right at the core. I'm so glad it still came through because I changed and added a lot. I had to
Yeah.
almost rewrite the thing in like 6 weeks. More
Oh, oh,
plot. Like, it's just the
that's
kind of thing.
brutal.
That's
That's
how it
brutal.
goes.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. But yes, I'm so glad that that still came through
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
was the original idea.
Okay, so where's your favorite place to write? Do you have a set spot or do you, go to a coffee shop? Because I know you're a big coffee aficionado.
I do like good coffee. However, the best coffee is the coffee I make at home at this point because I've like dialed in my process so much. I do like writing at home, but I also like moving around. I've tried to have a desk. I try to have like a place, but I just like to move around. So I'll be at the kitchen table or I'll be, slumped with bad posture on the couch or I'll go to the coffee shop or I'll
Yeah.
go wherever. I like to move around a little bit,
Yeah.
get different change of scenery.
So somebody asked this question. If you weren't writing about like Victorian, what period would you write?
I want to write a Western so bad, and I'm working on one right now. So, turn of the century America is my next
Okay.
obsession.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
that's what I want.
Are we talking like cowboys? The Wild West?
So, I don't know. There's a long path to how this happened, but I'm obsessed with mining towns. Especially the big, like Butte, Montana. Butte, Montana, 1908 is the book I'm writing right now. And who knows what will become of that because that is a highly particular time and place. But
Well, yeah,
I'm
it's
obsessed.
so different.
I think it's fantastic. It's so fascinating. It's my new deep dive. So
Good
I'm
for
getting
you.
into the American West, but I'm going through this like mining labor path as opposed to the cowboy path.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so different from London.
Oh yes,
In
it is. It's got I like
1886, you know?
I like the Montana open sky after spending years in like London alleys. It's really nice to let my imagination be where things are wide open and
Yeah,
bright.
yeah. Oh, I can't wait. So now, is this something that we'll be seeing in a couple of years?
Oh,
Or
I don't
you don't know?
don't know.
It's something that you're,
It is something I am working on and something that's trying to find the right home.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll keep you all posted when and if it finds the right home.
Okay. Are you I'm sure people want to know, are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
Oh, I'm a pantser. I hate plotting.
Okay.
It's the
Okay.
worst. I try. I did have to plot to sketch a scandal for because it's hard once you publish some books. They like think you know how to write books and they want you to like plan a book ahead of time, and that can be tough. But I did manage on this one, but I prefer not to if I
Yeah.
don't have to. I like to just explore and see where it goes.
Yeah. So have you ever had any characters just kind of take over the book and demand, you take them in a different way than where you think you're going to go?
Um, I think if anything, my characters usually get along better than I expected them to, which is always sort of a pleasant surprise. Like sometimes I'll
Yeah.
plot in some conflict. I think it particularly in book one, the Book of Vices, I expected there to be a little bit more, I don't know, interpersonal angst and just like the characters tended to get along well. And then I have to bring more things externally because my characters get along with each other a little too well for like their conflict to drive the plot. Um, Restless Rogues also has a different ending than the one that I planned by kind of a wide margin. Just because once I got David to a certain point, he could not make the choice that I wanted him to make and still be a good
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So that was a big change.
So, so how do you create these characters? Meaning, like Warren and with Maddie, I mean, do you just sit down and start listing characteristics of how you want them to be or what their mannerisms are? Or do you take something from history and try to create a character from that?
I do like to use sort of archetypes to
Yeah.
begin. And for this series in particular, though, since I had the characters already existing as side characters, it was a little bit different. But when I'm starting from scratch with a new character, I just kind of have like a vague idea. I also love the Enneagram, so I love to give my characters an Enneagram personality type. which I'm actually about to be on my favorite Enneagram podcast ever in the near future. We're like recording next week, and I'm starstruck.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's
Okay, you got to tell us what it is. Come on.
the Enneagram is like a personality. So it's the Enneagram Journey podcast, which
Okay.
that's I don't know, that's a big nerdy rabbit hole
No,
that I
I
fell
love
into
that
a while
stuff.
back. Oh, do you? I
Yeah,
love it too.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
helpful.
yeah,
I usually will start. So I'll have an archetype. I'll have like an Enneagram type, which sometimes changes while I'm writing,
yeah,
but that
yeah,
just gives me a little bit of a direction. I'll try to pick some physical characteristics, and I just start writing and just kind of see where it goes. I like to write a lot of dialogue,
yeah.
and then it just kind of takes off from there, and they develop. And then I usually do a lot of editing. So by there's the beginning to the end. I learn new things, and then I go
Yeah,
back to the beginning and sort of flesh things back out.
yeah.
And then I had so much fun writing with the side characters in new books because my side characters are very cardboard cutouts. Actually, I think maybe I get away with it because they're on the side and they look kind of like maybe
Uh-huh.
they have a real life, but they don't. So I have to, for Warren and Maddie in particular, it's basically I have a list like what do I know about
Yeah,
each of these
yeah.
characters from the previous books, and then what where does that leave where does that leave them, like where does that what story, what person, what human has these particular traits, and why, what would lead them to be the way that they are in those books. And so I find that to be a lot of fun.
In some of the reviews that I've just glanced at, people are really taken by the drag shows that you created in there. Now,
Okay.
how did you come up with this stuff?
Oh, well, drag was huge in the Victorian era, and it
Okay.
was, again, it's one of those things, like as long as they can pretend that nobody's like actually like touching each other,
Yeah.
then whatever. So Victorians loved a drag show. They loved drag queens. They loved drag kings. It was a super common form of performance. So that was around. There was also a there was such a just like a biological spheres idea at this time that was very strict. And so you do find that trans women and gay men and queer men, and they were all in the same spaces, and there was a lot more gender fluidity. Some of the early like gender theory things that are coming out a little bit later than this time period, but not much later. Like they were probably already talking about it before like the publications came out. But even being gay was sort of like academically considered to be a form of gender fluidity or of non-binary identity. It's really interesting to look at the evolution of this stuff because now we can think sometimes of people as being in very separate groups, but there was just like I don't know, there's just like this fluidity to it that I think was really that could be very beautiful, and it was really cool to see. So when you read some of these old books, like some of the ones I was talking about with the art, the parties and things that are described, there's drag, and there are people who we would understand now as trans women, regardless of how maybe they were identifying then, which was a wide variety. There's such a beautiful variety of gender expression in these spaces. It's so interesting. I really wanted to reflect that in the curious facts and in the lived experience of the characters I was writing. That was like my number one with these series, is to
Well,
get that across.
I would say that you accomplished that very well then.
Yay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's see here. I've got some more stuff. Do you read, speaking of reviews, do you read reviews?
I used to, and I shouldn't have.
Yeah, 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 don't. Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes I take a peek,
yeah,
and honestly, I'm just really glad people are so nice. In
yeah.
general, people, you can't please everybody, but in general, when I do take a peek, I'm usually just really humbled and blown away by
Oh,
by people's kindness.
well, you are loved, that's for sure on your reviews. But I had a friend who's very successful, and she told me one time. I told her I was like, I can't get off of Goodreads. I'm
It's
on all day
hard.
long looking at reviews. And
Yeah.
she goes, "Oh, I never get on there." And then she emailed me the next day and she goes, "Oh my God, they hate all this stuff. Why did you tell me about it?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. I thought you knew." And the point of it is that you put your art out there, right? You
Yeah.
put your book out there, and it's something very personal to you.
Yeah.
And you're right. Everybody has their own opinion, and they have that right to that opinion. But it's sometimes, it's raw, right? It's
It
raw.
can be, yeah. But the first book, I was having trouble
Yeah,
not looking, just because you want to know. And
I
back
know.
then, I
I
was
know.
also doing a lot of beta reads. I loved getting feedback from people, but the book's published, so if something's wrong with it, I can't do anything
Yeah,
about it by the
yeah,
time there's reviews online. So it's very different. I had to understand that it's not really feedback. It's not for me
yeah,
because I can't do anything with it. So a review's not for me because what am I gonna do?
yeah.
I'm already stamp of approval on that thing.
Well,
I'm moving on
everybody
to the
loved that
next,
first one.
but these days not really. No, I got over it.
Um, okay. Now, don't give me this. I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't
Okay.
want this answer that they're, like the Avett Brothers song, I love you all, but in so many different ways.
Okay.
I don't want to hear that. Do you have a favorite book that you've written?
Favorite one that I've written?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's a rule book for Restless Rogues. That's my favorite one.
A favorite character?
And my favorite character is David Forrester in a rule book for Restless
Oh,
Rogues. And I
thank
can't quit.
you.
David and Noah keep coming back. Those are my two. They're my favorite. They were my
Yeah.
favorite to write. They're not
Yeah.
my favorite side characters, favorite main characters. I admit it. They're my favorites.
Well, in essence, you've created a family, right? From these four
Yeah.
books. And yeah, I really, really appreciate you doing that because
I'll be
that's
honest.
a good
It
one.
sells the worst though, so tell everyone to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why it sells the worst, but it does.
Okay, I want you to answer this question for me.
Yeah.
Think about if you were looking back before you signed that first contract,
Yeah.
your pre-published me, what would you tell yourself back then, based upon what you know today?
That's a good question.
Well, think about it. Think about
Gosh, no, I'm thinking
it.
about it. No, probably just it was it's worth it because I worked really hard to get published. It took a
Yeah,
very long time and
yeah,
it took a changes of genre and it took a lot to actually get published. And I think I'd say it's worth it. It's worth it, but also it's real life and it's going to have downsides to it. It's not
yeah,
perfect either.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think I could have used maybe a little reality check and just the encouragement that it's a worthwhile endeavor
yeah.
to give it a try. It was not wasted time.
Good, good.
And
It wasn't,
every book is better. So you're going to get
yeah,
published with the longer it takes, the better the first book's going to be because I almost like shudder to think what if my other books from my first books that I got published, if the first
yeah,
ones I tried to publish got published, like, oh man, those ones were worse. Wouldn't
yeah,
have been as
yeah, yeah.
so that's a benefit.
Well, and we're the beneficiary of it because we get
Yeah.
all these wonderful stories that you've created and all these characters and things.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna play just real quick questions. Okay, I don't want you
Yeah.
to think about it. I just want you to spit
Okay.
it out. Okay, your favorite author.
Why did my whole brain just went blank
Okay.
as if I've never even read a book. Probably I think Fonda Lee is fantastic. She writes fantasy.
Yeah.
The Greenbone Saga, some of my favorite books, amazing.
And okay,
So
so
that's
that
modern. So non-modern though is Charles Dickens.
gotcha. And your favorite movie?
Labyrinth,
Okay. Favorite coffee?
my coffee. It's fresh ground
Okay. Okay.
and just a pour over V60.
Okay. All right. And then of course your favorite book.
My favorite book is I'm torn. It is Great Expectations. Charles
Oh,
Dickens. I love it. It's so funny and dark at the same time. Laugh out loud. Love Great Expectations.
that's great. Okay. So what's the most surprising thing that you learned when you wrote that first book?
When I wrote the first book, my first book I ever wrote, or the first book in Lucky Lovers
No, the
of
first
London.
book that you ever wrote.
The first book I ever wrote, oh gosh, so I was 14 and I wrote a weird vampire book that was basically just a regurgitation of a different vampire book. And it's not one don't think you know which one it is because you don't. It was some random thing. I don't even remember the name of it. It's basically a regurgitation of that. What did I learn from that? I guess that I could write a book. Just it could be done. I could do it. There it is.
Yeah.
It can be done. And I think that is really really valuable. A lot of people don't finish the book, and it's really nice to see that you can finish a book.
What's your favorite thing about storytelling? What is it that you want people to walk away from or walk away with is a better way of putting it.
I love to show just the connections and the community that people can build. I know I'm writing romance, so it's about a couple, but it's not really just about the couple, especially in the queer historical. You have to have that community. And I love just having a wide variety of people coming together and just supporting each other and supporting the connections that they're making. And just that's what I love. I love building these sort of like little ensembles, these ensemble moments. I try to kind of end all the books on sort of an ensemble moment because I just want to really leave people with that. Like you have a pair, but that pair matters in a wider context, I guess.
That's a lovely thought. It's like a raindrop hitting a pond, a still pond,
Yeah.
and all the reverberations that come out from that.
Mhm.
Um, you know, with these characters, has anybody ever really surprised you? I mean, are you one of these people? Let me back up and
Yeah.
ask this. Are you one of these people that say, "Oh my God, I woke up in the middle of the night because, Maddie was talking to me and I had to write it down."
I did. I did in a Blue Stockings Guide to Decadence. I had a day, there was a day where I woke up at 4 in the morning and I was like, I know what's wrong with it. And I know how I'm gonna fix it. And I know what my characters need to do. So it was Joe from book 3, and just sort of her relationship with her platonic husband, like something clicked and I did understand better what needed to happen. And so I did have that. It doesn't happen very often. I usually kind of know what's going on. I also really value my sleep. I really protect my sleep, so I wouldn't do that unless it was really the thing. So I did. I got up and I went and I fixed the thing that
Oh,
wasn't quite right in that
yeah,
relationship.
yeah. That's great. Yeah, I think the subconscious is a amazing thing. And
Yeah.
really,
Do you get that? I Does
I
that happen for
do,
you?
I
Yeah.
do, and one time it was with a character, and I couldn't put her together
Yeah.
with the guy quick enough with the main male character that I was writing. I
Yeah.
couldn't put them together. And it was like I was on page 50 and I know that my
Yeah.
editor would have had a conniption fit if
I've been there.
she
Yeah.
read that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I went back to their childhood and you can create all
Oh,
stuff, but it
okay.
just, it just came up there. Um,
Yeah.
do you write epilogues and prologues on?
Um, I do epilogues. I don't usually do prologues unless they're needed. So
Yeah,
there
yeah,
is one in Restless Rogues, but I think it's not a pro. I think they ended up just calling it Chapter 1 because then we put more flashbacks in. But I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like a secret prologue.
yeah.
I don't usually do the prologue, but I like to have the epilogue, just especially for the romance. Like I said, to get you the ensemble moment
Hmm.
at the end. So I like epilogues.
Okay. So if you were taking, or if you had invited Warren and Maddie to Thanksgiving dinner, and it's, with all of your friends, and it's kind of like a potluck, who would be bringing the recipe or, whatever it is that they've made that everybody would love?
Well, Warren can cook. Warren does all the cooking in his house.
I
So
was hoping you'd say that, yeah.
Warren's going to bring the rotis and he's going to bring some really good food. So yes, Warren can cook for everybody anytime. Maddie is not allowed to cook anything for anybody. I don't think Victorian bachelors didn't usually cook at all. They usually
Yeah,
ate
yeah,
everything out and about. So yes, Warren's bringing dinner.
yeah. Now, are there going to be more books in this series?
I don't think so. This is the last one that is planned. And I think I'm good with that for now. There's some other characters I'm interested, but like I said, I need a break from the Victorian
Yeah.
vibe for a little while, so I don't think I quite have it in me right now to do it. So it's not off the table to do something else, but I don't currently have anything planned.
Okay. Okay.
But
There, somebody else asked, I am also a gender and sexuality studies major. What was your favorite class?
this is probably not going to surprise you, but it was the history of sexuality class. It was very interesting. It talked about things I had not considered, talked about how like Roman sexuality is impacting us today. And I read a book called The History of Celibacy that was fascinating. It's been years and years and maybe like a decade or more since I read it. So I could recommend with some hesitation of knowing that it was a long time ago that I read it, but I found that to just be really eye opening. I learned a lot from that that book in particular, but that whole class was really interesting.
Now, you said you were going to go back to school in the fall.
Yes.
Will you still be writing? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm planning to keep writing. I don't know exactly what I don't know exactly what or what's next. My agent and I are kind of in conversation. The market has changed a lot recently.
Boy, you're
So
telling me.
I there's a yeah, you know too. there's a there's a chance that I might be going into just this like a historical fiction direction. There's a chance I might do something else in the romance space that maybe isn't historical or isn't a different. I don't know. We're just kind of in chats about what might be next, but it's up
And
in the air.
and that was one of my questions to you. If you weren't writing romance, what would you be writing? So you're thinking historical fiction, maybe this
I
Butte, Montana
That's the
story?
one where we're just kind of trying to figure out where it might fit, and there's a chance that it might fit. It might more comfortably fit in just a historical
Mhm.
um, sort of area as opposed to a romance. So it does have a romance in it, but it can still have that elsewhere. I also I don't know. I guess we'll see. She was kind of my agent was going to kind of test the waters and just see what people actually want in the
Yeah.
romance space right
Yeah.
now, just because I don't know, things are just changing very rapidly and it's kind of hard to know. So yeah, I'll keep everybody posted on what's
Yeah.
next,
Yeah.
but it might be something a little different.
Well, that's good. Well, we'll be waiting.
All right.
So to you, what makes a great story?
I just love to feel immersed. I just want to feel like I'm there. I want to feel like I'm in the characters' heads. I also want to laugh, ideally a lot, ideally out loud if I can. So that is what is a good story for me.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, I always think that if I cry, and because I never cry, it's like maybe once a
Yeah.
year I'll cry with a book, then, something really was remarkable about that book.
Yeah.
Do you ever cry?
Occasionally, not a lot with
Yeah.
reading, but it might just kind of be the types of books that I pick up. I do tend toward things that are a little bit more humorous, a little bit more maybe brainy,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that they get me thinking. I tend to gravitate toward that as well. But I cry at movies a lot. I think it's the music. I tend to. I don't.
Yeah, no, I get it. I
I
get it.
don't I don't cry at books a lot, even if it is very moving. I don't tend to actually cry. So
Yeah.
I don't judge a book for not making me cry because that's a me thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Needed more music.
Okay. Do you have a guilty pleasure when it comes to reading? What is it that nobody would ever, think that you would read?
Oh, this is funny because we're in. So it's weird because I have guilty pleasures on both sides. So when you're an English major, it's like a guilty pleasure to read romance, and when you're a romance author, it's like a guilty pleasure to go read like. My husband and I joke that I have the taste of a English major Ken doll occasionally. So, um,
I love that.
so I like some of this like meaty, juicy old literary fiction by dead white guys. Sometimes that's my guilty pleasure in the romance space. And then in that space, romance is my guilty pleasure. You can't win.
Wow. Well, do you celebrate when you finish a book?
I do, yeah. I'll usually like
Good.
go
Good
out to
for
dinner or
you.
something
Good
when
for
I finish
you.
the book, and
Yes.
then I celebrate when the book comes out. So like we weren't able
Yes.
to do an in-person like party or anything this time, but I went out to get Korean barbecue with my family.
Good.
That was fun.
Good.
Yeah,
That is good.
yeah.
Okay, I want to see the book again. Show the book to
See the book
everybody.
again to sketch a scandal. There it is, beautiful and blue.
I love that
They
book.
do a nice job with the sides and everything
Yeah,
too.
they really
Love
do.
it.
And the way that Warren is leaning over the bar,
I know.
they just got it. They just got it,
They
right?
did. Yeah, they clearly did their homework and they did a great job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, okay. That's about what I've got.
Well, that was you are a great conversation
Oh,
partner. Gosh,
uh,
wow, that was amazing.
uh,
Thank you so much. You obviously put a lot of
uh,
effort
you're,
into this, and I appreciate it so much.
yeah, you're sweet. You're sweet. Well, we appreciate you because
Thank you.
I'm telling you, this book is great. You guys go out there and buy it. As a matter of fact, go out and buy the whole series because I'm
Thank
going
you.
to do that. I just bought this one and read it, but now I'm going to go back and read all of them because
Well,
they're
thank you very
wonderful.
much.
Yes, I mean, Jaina stole the words right out of my mouth. Wow. And read to Sketch a Scandal. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening or morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And of course, thank you so much to Jaina and Jess for having this lovely conversation and letting us listen in.
Thank you for hosting.